Hello and welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. In this series, we are discussing Indian Economy book by SRIRAM sir himself, chapter wise. In today's session, we are going to discuss the third part of NITI Aayog chapter, which is chapter number 5. Before we start the chapter number 5, I would like to highlight that we have a mentorship which is available to all the students who are, I would say, curious and serious about their preparation. Now, this mentorship session is only for those students who actually want to do something for their own success. In this mentorship session, you will be provided with a guide and a mentor who will strategize your preparation for your next attempt. So, for this session, you just need to scan this QR code and fill the Google form and get yourself a good mentor. Moving ahead, if you have any queries in this series or in Indian economy per se, you can contact us on our Telegram or on this Google form or in the email ID which I have given over here. Understood? Now, moving ahead, if you want PPTs of these lectures, you must either text us or join this QR code, join this Telegram channel, or join our platforms, official platforms of SRIRAM's IAS. You will get the PPTs and the PDFs, and also along with that, you will also be shared with some of the handouts. Now, let's begin the discussion with where we left. In the last lecture, we completed till multidimensional poverty index, and today we have 5 or 6 more indices to discuss, and then we will complete this chapter. This session will be of 30 minutes only. Now, the next indice or index is School Education Quality Index. This was launched by NITI Aayog in 2019. It is basically about transparent and efficient education system, or I would say to manage education across states and UTs, because education per se is a concurrent list subject. It is placed in Schedule 7. Schedule 7 has 3 lists. One is union list, state list and concurrent list. In this concurrent list, we had 5 such items which were transferred from state list to concurrent list, and out of them education is one, forest, wildlife, multiple other are there, weights and measures, but you must remember these 5 at least minimum, because these 5 have been all asked by UPSC in 5 different PYQs. So you must remember that education lies in which list of 7th schedule, that is the 3rd list or the concurrent list. One more thing you should also remember, that the residuary list is not there in the 7th schedule. However, residuary powers are there with center. Now, further in this index, you should also remember that this is about the leadership in education. This is about that how different states are working in terms of education. Suppose I will give you an example, very simple example. The Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. This scheme needs every state, whoever is implementing it, to sign an MOU with center. And once we integrate this scheme with PM Shri Yojana, you should read about these yojanas or schemes separately. Now, once we integrate the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan with PM Shri Yojana, then only states get funds under Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, and PM Shri Yojana is there to at least have 14,500 such model schools which will be future ready and have technology, or will be having interactive or AI based, or I would say new age skills. Particularly, it will be easy for us to implement the National Education Policy 2020 through this model. Now, this is how states can be compared, or how states' education can be increased. That is about Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. But yes, you must remember one more thing, that all the states have different policies for education. All the states are progressing differently on the parameters of education. Now, in order to install competition among the states in terms of education, this index is more important. If the states are ranked in terms of their achievements in education, whether that is gross enrollment, whether that is retention, whether that is enrollment in secondary level, higher secondary level, college level, university level. Now, this will signify, or STEM courses or any other courses, whether that is the enrollment of females in education. Now these parameters will decide which state gets better rank. And if a state is getting higher rank, for example, there is 99% literacy or 100% literacy, which was achieved recently in Kerala. Now this all was possible because this state has took multiple initiatives or has been very much serious about its education at state level. That is how all other states are trying to follow this model of education. That is why these indices are important to install competitive federalism in terms of education. Clear with this thought? This index has 30 such indicators. For example, effectiveness, quality, efficiency of school education is measured by identifying strengths and weaknesses of all the education system. How many teachers are there? How much is the strength of class? How much is gross enrollment ratio? What is the dropout ratio? How many, what is the gender disparity, or how many female and male students are there at the school level, at the higher secondary level, at the college level, at the university level? How many are pursuing the PhD or doctorates or postdoctorates? Further, this is again aligned with the National Achievements Survey data, which covers learning, equality, infrastructure and equity. Now, this survey per se discusses about that how education and how everyone has their share in education or in the development or in the progress of education. Whether that is gender disparity or all of this, these 30 critical parameters talk about that how states are actually progressing in terms of education. Clear? Next index is health index or state health index. This performance or this measures the performance of states across different dimensions of health, like NITI Aayog along with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare plus World Bank. So there are 3 partners in this. They launched this state health index to spearhead the initiative since 2017. Now this index talks about 24 such health indicators to measure annual state and UT performance across health outcomes, governance structure and health processes. The key parameters for this are, first is, where are we assigning the weightage in this index? What are we actually considering once we define the parameters and once we define the data of this index? We are taking care of mortality rate, total fertility rate, sex ratio and other critical health parameters. Understood? So thereby the ranking under the 3 categories, larger states, smaller states and the union territories is done in order to install fair comparison. Now remember that in order to install competition and do comparative analysis of achievements in terms of health between the states, these states are categorized into 3 different categories. One is the larger states, another is the smaller states, and the third category is of union territories. Clear with this? Now, that is the health index. Along with this, we have the next index, that is Composite Water Management Index. This was also launched by NITI Aayog along with the Ministry of Jal Shakti. Jal Shakti Ministry. This index was launched to rank states in terms of efficient water use metrics. Clear? Now, the index comes at a critical theme or critical time when we have seen that largely majority of the cities in India are facing water crisis. The water we have currently in Delhi, this has uranium, arsenic, fluoride, everything is in this. If we do not do the RO processing or if we do not do the reverse osmosis of this, still, but this might look fancy, but yes, the problems with the water are there. And Delhi, Bengaluru, Pune, Chennai, these are the cities which are facing water crisis in India. Maybe this water seems like freely available. We will be discussing in economics that what are free goods and what are freely available goods. and what is the opportunity cost of these free goods. Water is one of that, but it no longer should be classified as a free good, because currently we know that this water comes with a lot of investment. This water has an opportunity cost. If we are wasting it, it means, or if we are providing it free to some people, should the state provide it free or not? That is some other dimension of discussion. Let's just leave it. Let's focus ourselves on this index only. So first of all, this index is about water efficiency and water use metrics, that how states are actually installing efficient water management, whether that is in agriculture, drinking water, sanitation, or any other thing, whether that is pollution or polluted rivers. Now, this talks about efficiency metrics. It tracks the water use efficiency and conservation. It talks about the water life cycle. It measures the dimensions across entire water cycle, and also it acts as a tool of federalism, because it installs cooperative and competitive federalism in terms of water management. Clear? This index is also launched by NITI Aayog itself along with the Ministry of Jal Shakti. Remember these factual points. Export Preparedness Index. This is also first ever, which was launched in 2020 by NITI Aayog, developed by NITI Aayog with the Institute for Competitiveness. Remember this, it ranks all the states and UTs based on export readiness, that how much ready are our states in terms of exports, that how much infrastructure, industries, export ready market, better health standards, better phytosanitary measures are taken care once we discuss the export dimensions of either agriculture, industrial products, factory made products, or any other thing. Now, this index takes care or studies export policies of the states. It studies the business environment of the state, that how much regulatory measures and state intervention is there in the market. Further, it also discusses and studies export infrastructure and export performance, growth trends, that what kind of goods are being exported, how much is the growth in these exports over the period of time, or over 10 years, 20 years, or 5 years, or 6 years. This index identifies the challenges and opportunities both, enhances the policy effectiveness, and encourages regulatory framework. The states can benchmark their performance based on this, and thereby these states can improvise in terms of exports. Understood? It is very well and simple explanation of this index. Clear with this? Now, there is one more index, that is Agricultural Marketing and Farmer Friendly Index. Now, this index is based on that how many reforms does a state bring in order to establish, or in order to increase, or in order to reform its agriculture and agriculture market. Understood? Now, remember that NITI Aayog launched this index to rank states and UTs based on the implementation of Model APMC Act. Clear? And ENAM participation, special treatment for fruits and vegetables, and mandi tax levels. Now remember that the name of this index itself talks about its purpose. The name of the index says that it is about reforms. It is about reforms in agriculture and marketing. Agriculture marketing is largely driven by these APMC mandis. Now these agriculture producer markets, or I would say that these mandis had basically a structure in which intermediaries used to play a greater role, in which more earnings were there with intermediaries than with the farmers themselves, in which more of the commission was taken out of the sales by these commission agents and less was left for the farmers. Further, the cartel system which was working in these APMCs was to be eroded, and that was one of the objectives. Thereby, we actually introduced the ENAM. What is ENAM? It is the agricultural market, and these all reforms, APMC mandis, Model APMC Act, and ENAM, and multiple other factors, whether that is AGMARK, whether that is the any other measure which we have taken, whether that is multi-commodity exchange, we will discuss all of this in agriculture itself. Now first, this index talks about agricultural market reforms, that is the competitiveness among the states, land lease reforms, that how much easily are the norms and laws for leasing out land and contract farming, forestry reforms, that freedom for felling and transit of trees on private land, enabling the farm diversification. This indicator reveals the ease of doing business and opportunity in terms of for the farmers and their benefit. Understood? That is the main purpose of this index. Now, one more index is the India Innovation Index. This index measures the innovation capabilities, that how much innovative our states are, how much innovation is there in the state. Now, how would you measure innovation in a state? You should learn this thing, that if a state has better human capital, that means that state may be more innovative. Why so? Because human capital means what? Healthy population with better skills and good knowledge. Now, all of these are not only good knowledge but future ready knowledge. Now, all of these things combined together mean that this population has a scientific temper which is better than others. Now, this scientific temper will lead to more innovation. That is a solution-driven approach for the future problems. The problems of future are climate change, poverty, hunger, food security, and multiple other things. Now, these things need solutions. Then these solutions can come from only those states or only that demography or only those people who are innovative itself. Understood? Then only they will lead to inventions and innovations. Thereby, NITI Aayog along with the Institute for Competitiveness to constructs India Innovation Index, examining the innovation capabilities and performance of states and union territories. The first index was launched in 2019. Innovation. What is innovation? It is the creation, development and implementation of new products, processes, services with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness and competitive advantage. What are the needs and how can we improvise on competitiveness? First is human capital. Second is knowledge output. Third is safety and legal measures, investment, knowledge workforce and business environment. Now, these are some of the, I would say, parameters where innovation can be increased in a state. Suppose if UPSC asks a question in mains, talking about that how India can lead in terms of innovation and find itself a place as a global leader in terms of innovation, or how can we improvise in terms of innovation, because there is Global Innovation Index also and you should read about that also, or we will be reading about that in the chapter of industry or in the chapter of intellectual properties, which is the last chapter of this book. We'll be reading about that in that chapter also. So, we can quote this index. Innovation Index, its structure compromises of 36 indicators which are used for comprehensive assessment. What are these indicators? Like 5 enabling pillars. First is human capital, investment, knowledge workforce, business environment, safety and legal environment. These are the main 5 pillars of innovation which are required to have innovation in a state. 2 performance pillars. Now, how can we see that innovation is actually performing? First is how much output is there of knowledge, and second is knowledge diffusion. How much faster are you diffusing or transferring this knowledge? Now, this was modeled based on the Global Innovation Index. This Global Innovation Index is produced by World Intellectual Property Organization. That is why I told you that this index we will be reading about again in the intellectual property and rights chapter, which is the last chapter of this book. There is a very strong correlation between innovation and development. As the states become more innovative, their per capita GDP rises. Clear with this? One more index is about Fiscal Health Index. Now see, in the recent times, because we installed this culture of competitive federalism in states, these states, if you see across all the indicators, all the indices which we discussed right now, there is one thing common, that is capital. See, whether that is human capital or investment, human capital, capital for market reforms, infrastructure, business environment, this requires capital only. Further, water management and efficiency, this requires technology, and technology itself requires capital. Health index also requires infrastructure for health, and that infrastructure, whether that is hospitals, new vaccines, research and development labs, lab testing, this all requires capital. Now this all capital is searched after by the states, and once these states are looking after that, how should we procure this capital, they go for what? Either they go for debt, or they go for borrowings or loans, or what they do is they increase their fiscal deficit. Now these are the two parameters. First is deficit and debt, or debt index and debt sustainability, or fiscal prudence, revenue mobilization and expenditure quality. Now remember this thing, that if you somehow are getting 10,000 or 15,000 from your home or from your parents, and you are spending every month 20,000, borrowing 5,000 every month from one of your friends, how long will this work? How much sustainable is this scenario? That was the problem of states. That was the problem of states in India, that they were increasing their fiscal deficit in order to ensure that their competitiveness increases. But the problem is, where are you actually doing this expenditure? Are you doing this expenditure in vote bank politics? Are you giving freebies? Where is the opportunity cost of those freebies? How much revenue are you actually collecting? What is the expenditure done on the revenue collection? Now this all needs to be tracked, and this all needs to be indicated in a particular index, so that all the states can perform better in terms of fiscal health. That is why this index was made. Understood? This index takes care of 5 such parameters: expenditure quality, revenue mobilization, fiscal prudence, debt index, and debt sustainability. Top performers in this index are Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. They demonstrate strong fiscal discipline, keeping their fiscal deficit and debt lower, while as Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Kerala, they face high debt and unsustainable expenditure. Now, NITI Aayog is such an organization which should be understood for fiscal federalism of India, not fiscal federalism, sorry, for competitive and cooperative federalism of India. Now, what should be the path forward for NITI Aayog in order to achieve its vision of India? Whether that is developed India by 2047, which was set up in 10th Governing Council meeting in 2025 itself, or whether that is achieving the renewable energy targets, a question which appeared in 2022. All of these developmental parameters need to be achieved. And how should we progress further with the planning of India? First of all, the commitment which we have made to ourselves that we need to develop India by 2047, this needs cooperative federalism and sustainable development and inclusive growth. 3 things. 3 things, and all the 3 things have been asked in PYQs. Through strategic indices, collaborative governance, and state empowerment, it drives India towards becoming a developed nation by 2047. All the 3 things. So thereby, cooperative federalism means that states should learn from each other and then compete for better outcomes. Data-driven policies should be there so that evidence-based decision-making can be done. Further, inclusive development in order to ensure that no one is left behind, sustainable future, because these economies need to take care of environment now. Last time also in one of the lectures we discussed about the donut economy. We discussed about that how much importance is there to be given to environmental protection, and that is how the fiscal health, the health of states can be achieved. Now, NITI Aayog is one such, I would say, chapter in your book on which I will be discussing some of the PYQs, not all. I won't be discussing them, I will be just showing it to you that whatever we are discussing in this book is important. See, there was a question asked in mains 2018 and it says that how are the principles followed by NITI Aayog different from those followed by Planning Commission. Now remember, we had a clear, concise discussion in the first part of this chapter that was about differences between NITI Aayog and Planning Commission. What was the difference between NITI Aayog and Planning Commission? What was their methodology? How they actually work? What is top-down and bottom-up approach? How NITI Aayog builds the team India? How NITI Aayog has the hubs of knowledge hub or the governing council, regional council, state meeting, everyone's, there are provisions for competitive and cooperative federalism. Now we need to write all of that in this question. Second, in 2015 itself, the first question, the first year NITI Aayog came up, question was asked that Planning Commission, which will be replaced or which organization will be replaced by NITI Aayog. In 2016 itself, there was a question on Financial Stability and Development Council, in which it was clearly mentioned that it is an organ of NITI Aayog, which was not the case. Understood? There was one more question asked about the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. Which of the following statements is correct? It is an organ of NITI Aayog. It is an organ of NITI Aayog. See. Now, NITI Aayog is again and again used in 2016, 2017 by UPSC to think about or to make students ask themselves that are they actually preparing well for the exam or not. In 2019, Atal Innovation Mission was asked and we discussed it in the lecture itself, Atal Innovation Mission, NITI Aayog. So thereby, such questions have been asked by UPSC. You should at least have a know-how of all such questions, whatever UPSC has asked in PYQs, because that is what makes you a good student and a good aspirant for UPSC. UPSC demands, clearly, I have said it multiple times, a student, UPSC demands from a student a full control and I would say analysis of all the PYQs which it has asked in past at least 10 to 15 years. That is the minimum you can do for yourself before you go into the exam. Without this, you should not go for an attempt. Even if you did your foundation 1,000 times, without PYQs, you should not go into the exam. That would be the last message. Thank you. I wish you all the best. Jai Hind.